but I assure you I get more things DM'd to me in text and in my junk folder that ask me to send United States dollars or in some type of way trying to get my credit card information.
Yeah.
The number one currency used in illegal activities, the preferred, is the United States dollar because it currently, at least, is the global reserve currency. Although that's currently being challenged. And we have the BRICS nations, Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa, and a few others have now been added that are reducing their dependency on the United States dollar as this new administration comes in. So keep an eye out for that. But major corporations, financial institutions, countries are all integrating cryptocurrencies into their operations due to their efficiency and transparency and their security. Many banks behind the scenes are using some form of internal digital asset to reconcile their transactions around the world so they don't have to go in and out of foreign exchange. So what does that translate to? It translates to more money and profits for them. Those are not being passed on to the end consumer.
You're listening to the Black to Business Podcast, an educational podcast providing Black entrepreneurs with the tools and resources to start and grow their businesses. We chat with vetted Black entrepreneurs, thought leaders, and business owners as they provide tips and resources to help take your business to the next level. I'm your host, Monique T. Marshall. Hey, and welcome to the Black to Business Podcast. I'm your host, Monique T. Marshall, and let me tell you, today's episode is pure gold, like real digital gold. We're talking about something that goes beyond the surface, so I love when we get to do this. We're talking about how digital currency and blockchain technology can be the tools we use to redefine financial freedom in our communities. Now let's get real for a moment. As Black entrepreneurs, we've all seen the hurdles, the denied loans, the systemic barriers, and the feeling of having to do more with less. But what if I told you that there's a way to bypass some of these barriers? A way to gain access to global markets, reduce unnecessary costs, and build wealth that isn't just temporary, but sustainable for generations to come. That is what we're talking about today. And to guide us through this powerful conversation, we've brought on one of the best in business, Dr. Tonya Evans. She's a tenured professor at Penn State Dickinson Law, an internationally recognized blockchain and cryptocurrency expert, and the author of Digital Money Demystified. But what makes her truly special is her ability to break down complex ideas and make them not just understandable, but actionable. Dr. Tonya didn't just learn about digital currency from the sidelines. She actually embraced it, dissected it, and is now here to show you how to use it as a tool to level up in your business and your wealth. So during this conversation, she's going to talk about why understanding digital currency is essential for Black folks and entrepreneurs, and it's not optional. She'll break down myths about crypto being just for scams and share how technologies like Bitcoin and blockchain can offer transparency, security, and freedom in ways the traditional financial system never has. She's even talking about how digital currencies are helping to bypass systemic financial inequalities and how you can get started even if this is all new to you. And let me tell you this is a masterclass episode. So I started with my little notebook for this one, but by the time Dr. Tonya finished dropping all these gems, I had to pull out the big notebook. She's given us step-by-step guidance on how to assess whether digital currency is right for your business, your life, and how to protect yourself from scams, and how this technology can help you play the long game when it comes to creating generational wealth. So whether you're running a trucking company, creating digital products, or operating in professional services, this episode is about showing you how to get ahead in the digital economy that isn't waiting for anyone. So let's get into it. Dr. Tonya, welcome to the Black to Business Podcast. I am so thrilled to have you on the show. So welcome.
Thank you so much. I'm excited to share this information with you and your audience. And I've enjoyed your show just personally. So it's a pleasure to be here with you.
Thank you. And we are excited to have you here and talk about all things financial freedom, redefined, and how digital currency can empower entrepreneurs. But before we get there, I would love it if you could share a little bit about your background. What is it that you do in your profession and business, and how did you get started?
Excellent. Well, Today, I'm a full tenured professor at Penn State Dickinson Law School, and I have a co-hire appointment at the Penn State Institute for Computational and Data Sciences. And that's a
Hmm.
whole lot of jargon for I teach, write, and speak at the intersection of intellectual property and new technologies. And back in 2017, when I started to expand my teaching to really focus on what the new technology of the time was, that certainly was on Bitcoin and Ethereum. This, at the time, I believed to be magic internet money. I didn't know where it came
Hmm.
from, who ran it. I am licensed to practice law in 4 states, and I very much love my licenses. So anything that seemed too complicated, risky,
Hmm.
just unclear, I didn't really want any parts of. But also in 2017, I learned about the underlying technology known as blockchain, and we can talk about and really get to the granular level of some definitions. I think that's often helpful for listeners as well. But blockchain was interesting to me because it was a new method of organizing and protecting information.
Hmm.
And as an intellectual property lawyer by training and expertise, that was really interesting to me because also kind of at the end of the 1999s and the early aughts, we were
Hmm.
using peer to peer technologies to exchange information. It was fascinating to me to also think of that same type of technology not just being used for the exchange of information or media files, the MP3 files, but also now this idea of value and how that could also be beneficial to creators of digital products and services. And so my initial attraction to the space was at the intersection of my existing expertise and this new technology that might be able to make things better, faster, cheaper, even though I could also fully appreciate a lot of the risks. I didn't know at the time what it would mean for me personally, but at the time, as an associate dean of a law school, as a professor of intellectual property and new technologies, I needed, not just wanted, but needed my students to be well versed so that they could be conversant in the language of the new economy, so that they could be successful in their professional regard. And if they intended someday to invest in cryptocurrencies, that was a separate conversation. I was really more
Hmm.
focused on the professional aspect. And so that's how I entered the space. And then final point around my history and background. My mother and father both went to Howard University. So shout out to
Yeah.
my bison. Was a baby bison actually. I was born
Yeah.
shortly thereafter, and also I went to Howard Law School
Yeah.
as well. I was the editor in chief of the Law Journal. I started in big law after clerking in the Third Circuit at the federal level. And so I've done a lot of traditional things, but also
Hmm.
pushed myself beyond like the four corners of a well curated life and checking all the boxes and staying out of trouble. The idea
Yeah.
of leaning into things that weren't familiar, but as a lifelong learner and educator, really interested me because we can say whatever we want about crypto and blockchain and all of those things. The technology is here, it's transforming how we work and play and interact. And innovate. And so I'm really proud that I was able to pivot my work and my career to really be at the forefront of investment, of education, of policy and law as it relates to the technology that we're talking about today.
Mm, that was such a phenomenal intro, I must say, and such a phenomenal story. And I love fellow Bison here as well.
Oh,
So
okay, let's
Did
go,
you?
HU.
Love that. And I love your story and also the fact that we have an expert and an educator on the podcast. I'm just excited to get into it. So, with that, let's first break it down. So, you talked about learning about this because what people also think is like, what's this magic money? And we like to break it
Yes.
down on the Black to Business podcast. So, first, let's understand digital currency and the basics. So, Dr. Tonya, what exactly is digital currency and how is it different from traditional money?
Great. Well, digital or sometimes you'll hear the term virtual currency. Oftentimes,
Mm-hmm.
the folks on the Hill will talk about virtual currency, but we're all talking about the same thing. And it means a completely software enabled form of value, a form of money, and I'll say even more about that in a moment, that has no physical equivalent, but also no central issuer of that particular value. And what does that mean? Taking a step back, generally speaking, we are relying on government issued money, also known as fiat currency. And that's what we're used to. We're in the United States, for example, we are down with the almighty dollar, the Benjamins, as well.
Mm-hmm.
And when we think about, people ask me all the time, and I want to say a bit more about this in a moment, but people ask me all the time, what is Bitcoin backed by? What is Ethereum backed by? What
Mm-hmm.
Dogecoin, et cetera, et cetera. And I say, good question. Let's first start with what the United States dollar is backed by. And sometimes people will say gold, and I'll say, wrong answer, because our currency has not been backed by physical gold since for decades. I think
Mm-hmm.
for literal decades have passed. And so, what is our own currency that we love so much, and that is currently at least the global reserve currency? It's based on the full faith and credit of the government. And so we have to like Selah, pause and reflect on that. And that's not to discount it, but it's also to put it in its proper perspective, that now we are able to, in addition to holding a country's currency, we are able to hold a currency that is based on supply and demand. That, and looking at the price of Bitcoin, for example, that started at zero and now is over 100,000 per coin. It's based on a community that has seen its value because it has what we call a hard cap. There will only and ever be 21 million Bitcoin in circulation, and 19 million of them are all 19 plus actually are already in circulation, and it's still early. Most people aren't having the conversation that you and I are having. The fact that now we can use the same type of peer-to-peer technology to, instead of exchange messages about media or information, about value in a way that uses what's called cryptography. And that's where the crypto and cryptocurrency comes from, the
Mm-hmm.
technology of encrypting data. We use cryptography is working in the background constantly. It's working in the background as you and I are having this conversation. It's working in the background as your listeners will access this episode when they listen to it. And cryptography is a form of security. So when we see the part that is crypto, most people would think like cryptic or nefarious or illegal. It really is just cryptography that's been around for a long, long time, which, and cryptography makes it difficult, if not impossible, to counterfeit money.
Mm-hmm.
So it's actually more secure than a dollar, where although it is challenging and difficult, evidently counterfeiters going to counterfeit, and that still
Yeah.
is actually a thing. And then the final point about crypto is the transactional information about how much I have in my wallet, how much I might send to you. All of that is time-stamped information that is also public facing. So it's interesting because it's not anonymous, but it's pseudonymous, where we're
Mm-hmm.
identified by wallet, but not by name or location, because all of those things are irrelevant. Either I have the money or I don't, right?
Mm-hmm.
Either I am who I am or I'm not. And the software does the balances and checks. It provides the rules in the absence of rulers, which actually is very powerful for the Black community in particular, where systemically there have been so many barriers that are really blocking our financial blessings. And so that's the context in which I would like to look at crypto. Now, are always going to be scammers, but actually, it's a bit more difficult to get away with a financial crime in the cryptocurrency realm because of the way blockchain works. And let me quickly define blockchain, since I just mentioned the word as well. What
Mm-hmm.
we're talking about here is a digital record or ledger, a digital record where transactions are recorded in a time stamped and chronological order. And again, publicly facing. You could go to any blockchain explorer and literally see every transaction around the world hitting in real time without knowing the actual person. So it's really the
Ah.
foundation for crypto. It's the foundation for digital assets. It's the foundation for non fungible tokens that allows for security, but also transparency, which is a very, very difficult thing to do or to create.
Wow. Wow, that was so much great information. I honestly had my little notepad, so I
Oh,
had
very
to bring
good.
out my big notebook for that for because I'm just writing and writing notes. And this is definitely one I'm going to come back to. I learned so much even just there. Dr. Tonya, thank you so much for breaking
Mhm.
that down for us. And I love the fact that you spoke on, systemically how Black people in general, we've been shut out from a lot of opportunities when it comes to finances. And I love also that you talk about this in a way that it's how can digital currency empower us as entrepreneurs? So
Mhm.
why would you say it's important for entrepreneurs to understand this concept of digital currency in today's economy?
Mhm. Well, let me get at the point, both kind of with some general observations
Mm-hmm.
about Black wealth.
Mm-hmm.
I think that is particularly important as we see our community, in particular in the LA area, for example, with the Altadena fires, wiping out
Mm-hmm.
millions upon millions of dollars of Black wealth overnight. That conjures up notions of the intentional burning of some of our communities, when we think of like Tulsa, et cetera. And in what way can we start to, in the new economy, focus more on indestructible wealth, so that we're not starting over with each community and each tragedy, whether it is manifested by nature or some nefarious acts of people who would not like to see us build, and be great, right? So, at a kind of like just a high level, thinking about not just, we have to always appreciate the risks, but the opportunities with digital assets like Bitcoin and Ethereum, and how that has ushered in new opportunities for wealth creation that were previously inaccessible. When I think about Black communities and our potential relationship to crypto, it really can serve as an additional tool in addition to doing everything else traditionally, right? So we're focused on home ownership, we're focused on
Right.
not trading our time for money. And so focusing on creating, sustaining, and passing on assets that have a return on investment. So that's classically going to be capital assets. Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies are taxed as capital assets. So in this way, it might be the best way, it might be the only way that we have in our current lifetime to make up for lost time and lost assets, right? In a way where we don't have gatekeepers. And so the only impediment to our participation now is our lack of knowledge, which equates to the vulnerability to scams if we don't know what we don't know. So just wanted to kind of set that stage.
Mm-hmm.
And now into the question, particularly about challenges and also opportunities for Black entrepreneurs in the digital space, which is one of my favorite topics. Whether or
Mm-hmm.
not you invest, and I hope that the information that I provide, and through my book, Digital Money Demystified, and some other resources we can talk at the end, that people will not only take a second look, but really, really understand the value, and the upside. But even if you never invest, we got to get our companies and our entrepreneurial endeavors in shape.
Right.
So, as you are well versed in and talk about quite a bit on the show, we see Black entrepreneurs facing systemic barriers in technology and finance. And so to think about the crypto space, where I say kind of like technology and finance had a baby and now we have crypto,
Mm-hmm.
it's like a microcosm of the microcosms where we are always, I mean, already kind of outside looking in for the most part, from limited access to capital to lack of representation in tech spaces. But blockchain and innovating in blockchain, uh, really presents a unique opportunity to bypass some of the traditional barriers in a what we call a decentralized way. And by
Mm-hmm.
decentralized, this means we're leveling out access and opportunity. So it's not centralized in kind of the big seven tech companies of the world that are creating this type of like tech oligarchy that we see now, that is it's amassed billions of dollars in wealth. How do we start
Yeah.
to how can we compete with that? And the answer to that is found in a decentralized nature. It offers greater accessibility to financial and technological resources. It challenges this notion of the crypto bro and tech bro and finance bro culture. and it forces inclusivity. It requires intentional strategies, and it requires community focused initiatives. And that's why I'm so bullish and excited about just even innovating in the space. Any way that you can think in your respective businesses, whether it is in supply chain or environment or healthcare or education or professional services, this technology is touching everything that we do. And if we get ahead of the curve from an entrepreneurial point of view, that's also creating Black wealth and circulating Black wealth in the new economy.
Mm-hmm. Certainly. And I love that so many great points that you mentioned. And one of the things you spoke about is how there's this lack of access and education around this. And I want to talk about how or what are some of the common misconceptions about digital
Mm.
currencies that might be holding entrepreneurs back that you think?
Yes, this question is something that's so relatable to me because as
Mm-hmm.
a as a lawyer trained to find the problem, like my entire work and life and profession is listening to people tell me a story and spotting the legal issues and then accessing the resources to protect them, advise them, zealously represent them. That's literally what lawyers'
Mm-hmm.
responsibilities do: issue spot and problem solve. So that led me, as I was challenging my own notions, my misconceptions about crypto, that led me to kind of write down the top 8 to 10 of them and consolidate that into the book. So let's kind of go through like the myth versus fact. I like to approach it that way.
Okay.
And perhaps, and you let me know how this resonates with you, that
Okay.
one of the most pervasive things and the biggest myths and the biggest questions I get are around cryptocurrencies being mainly used for illegal activities. Does that resonate?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So it is actually not true. That is a huge myth of only
Yeah.
less than 2%. And I'm being conservative with that number. And these statistics come from a company called Chainalysis. They do blockchain forensics and work very closely with the Department of Justice and similar agencies around the world in order to recover probably not just millions but billions in lost or stolen cryptocurrencies through blockchain
Mm-hmm.
forensics. And it's largely for the reason that I mentioned earlier, that you have this public facing record of every single transaction. So when they are able to identify one wallet, it's literally the easiest way to follow the money. Literally.
Right. Right. I would
And
not want that. No problems with
no,
that.
absolutely, because it's literally, it's like we call it sometimes in the law, res ipsa loquitur, the thing speaks for itself.
Mm.
And
Yeah.
so it's a very short case when you just bring
Yeah.
in basically the paper or the digital record that shows the digital footprint for nefarious activity. So of course, cryptocurrencies have been used in illegal transactions, but I assure you, I get more things DM'd to me in text and in my junk folder that ask me to send United States dollars or in some type of way trying to get my credit card information.
Yeah.
The number one currency used in illegal activities, the preferred, is the United States dollar because
Mm.
it currently, at least, is the global reserve currency. Although that's currently being challenged, and we have the BRICS nations, Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa, and a few others have now been added that are reducing their dependency on the United States dollar as this new administration comes in. So keep an eye
Mm-hmm.
out for that. But
Yep.
major corporations, financial institutions, countries are all integrating cryptocurrencies into their operations due to their efficiency and transparency and their security. Many banks behind the scenes are using some form of internal digital asset to reconcile their transactions around the world so they don't have to go in and out of foreign exchange. So what does that translate to? It translates to more money and profits for them. Those are not being passed on to the end consumer. And
Mm-hmm.
so that was a really, really important myth for me to tackle in the book. And then the next is, of course, investing in crypto is too risky or similar to gambling. So I'm sure you've heard that, or maybe
Mm-hmm.
you
I've
even
heard that one. Yep.
feel it. And it's not a myth that crypto across the board is volatile. I really reduce that to a question about volatility and managing your own risk tolerance. But like any investment, crypto carries a risk, particularly in emerging economies. One of the talks I do through my business, I don't think I mentioned it, but Advantage Evans FinTech Academy and Consulting. That's where I'm spending most of my time while I'm on leave to do the book and a lot of
Mm-hmm.
consulting. So Advantage Evans has become my primary resource for sharing information. And a lot of what we spend time on is one, doing a risk assessment. What's my tolerance level? What's my age and stage? What money will I need now versus in the future? And like any investment, cryptocurrencies carry risk. When I do talks around the early days of the S&P 500, for example, or the New York Stock Exchange or the NASDAQ, incredibly volatile.
Mm-hmm.
Not enough liquidity, not enough regulatory clarity, literally all the same things that people are concerned about with the crypto market. We've said about other markets
Yes.
until the regulatory environment gets more stable, more people come in, the demand goes up, liquidity is more available. So it's the antithesis of gambling unless you're looking for a quick win. I don't mind getting rich quickly, but if you want to get rich quickly, you have to get smart even more quickly. And so understand from a strategic point of view that volatility is where the opportunity is, and that you are developing a balanced portfolio across asset classes, but also within them. And so I'm not afraid of risk. And it certainly is not gambling to me because I have a long term strategy. So hopefully, I'll list a couple of others just so people know whether cryptocurrencies are too complicated for the average person to understand. My 77-year-old parents are in it to win it. So,
Love that. Love
like,
it. I
they're in
love
it,
it.
right? So, the value, speculation, we've already talked about that.
Mm-hmm.
Not secure, we've talked about that a bit. So, those are some of the things that myths that I personally had to confront, what I wanted to explain in plain language in the book, and what I hope for your listeners will gain from it.
Now, I know this conversation is getting so good, and you're probably jotting down some mental notes. And speaking of which, let me share something that's been a huge help for me. I first tried Magic Mind last year, and I have been hooked ever since. It's a mental performance shot that helps me stay focused and calm. No jitters, no crash, and whether I'm juggling tasks or powering through a long day, Magic Mind gives me the clarity that I need. And what I love most is it's not just a quick fix. It supports my body's natural energy production. Magic Mind uses organic matcha, adaptogens, and nootropics to improve mental clarity, focus, and reduce stress. Magic Mind is also offering their sleep shots, which help you wind down and get better rest at night so you can feel refreshed and ready to go the next day. And here's the exciting part. Magic Mind is offering the Focus and Sleep Bundle at 45% off exclusively for the Black to Business family. Just head to magicmind.com/black to be Jan. That's BLACKTOBJAN to claim your discount and boost your focus and well-being today. I am so glad that you really talked and broke those down because it's like we also have to make these educated and informed decisions now. So moving
Mm,
forward, we know better, we do better.
right.
And now I want to kind of shift into the benefits of digital currency for entrepreneurs. So, Dr. Tonya, what would you say are well, what are some of the key benefits for integrating currencies into your business model?
hmm So it all depends. Well, let's whether or not people develop add it to or include it in their business model.
Mm-hmm.
The first thing that we have to do is even assess whether it is worthwhile or beneficial. And in order to do that, it takes me back to something you said earlier, that we have to make well informed decisions.
Yes.
That putting our head in the sands to say, too risky, too volatile, drug money, don't want anything to do about it, here today, gone tomorrow, it's a fad, it's a
Mm-hmm.
scam, is no longer sufficient answer. Our own government is considering adding Bitcoin to our strategic reserves of this country. We now have access to spot Bitcoin exchange traded funds, meaning you don't have to necessarily hold Bitcoin. You can buy an exchange traded fund, one offered, and I'm not sponsored, I'm not gatekeeping this information.
Mm-hmm.
BlackRock, Fidelity, ARK Invest, Grayscale. I mean, they had me at BlackRock because it's like
Mm-hmm.
one of the most conservative investment firms in the world.
Yeah.
Decided, Larry Fink decided this was a good idea, that they were missing an opportunity. All the while, the average consumer sees a headline that says, stay away, it's too dangerous. It made me think this is not just misinformation, but disinformation to disenfranchise people while big banks start to try and recreate their oversized impact so that they control everything in the future. Only the future technology won't allow them to do that unless you are not educated. So kind of just, start there.
Mm-hmm.
Staying informed enough and staying up to date with the latest technology at the intersection of whatever your area of expertise is, whatever your career, whatever your profession, learning what's going on. A simple search with your favorite search engine or a chat with your favorite AI platform will give you instant information about what folks are talking about in your industry as it relates to blockchain, artificial intelligence, decentralized artificial intelligence, and certainly crypto. So we start there. So that will lead to the really important conversations at the decision level about how you
Mm-hmm.
inform yourself and therefore inform your workforce, your colleagues, your clients as a value add. If nothing else, they know that you are staying on the leading edge and trying to protect them, inform them so that they can leverage the technology as well. So that's a value add. Again, even if they're not integrating crypto or blockchain into the work that they do, they want to make sure that their clients and customers are well informed and able to take advantage of that as well. I also say building the network is important. So connecting with others who are also working with blockchain and crypto, and a strong professional network and continuing education in this space opens up so many new opportunities that you as an entrepreneur will start to identify in a way that is unique to you and your experience and your clients or whomever you serve. And certainly the continuing education of those with whom you're working. Anybody who has databases and, you have very sensitive, personally identifiable information about your work, about your proprietary information, about your clients, about your consumers and customers. And that is critically important as a matter of data privacy. So, if nothing else,
Mm-hmm.
how is that changing the nature of the way you are collecting, storing, disseminating information? So, as a matter of cybersecurity and digital privacy, it's critically important. Many times, a garden variety centralized database is sufficient. The blockchain is not
Yes.
like hot sauce. You do not need to put it on everything. And so, in many instances, it's not going to work for you, but you need to make that informed decision to be sure. And then finally, to your point, exploring digital currencies. So, thinking about how using digital currencies or maybe even creating your own can add value to your business. Maybe there's some utility that you can provide or some value add by using a unique token within your own ecosystem that certainly can add value. So I love that idea, but it's after you've done
Mm-hmm.
all of the previous steps so that you can make those educated decisions about the future of your company.
Yes. And that's such a great point. It's like you're not saying just jump right into it.
No,
Learn all
no,
the things and take it step by step. Great advice.
yes.
And Dr. Tonya, what are some ways that you would say that digital currency a role it plays in reducing transaction costs or also increasing access to those global markets?
hmm So this is such an important point. So I'm so glad that you raised it because
Mm-hmm.
oftentimes, particularly in the United States, where we have access to the global reserve currency that is the U.S. dollar, people are like, the dollar's working fine for me. Why do I need anything else?
Mm-hmm.
And in particular, and in this political climate, I think remittances, meaning sending money overseas, is going to be even more important. And, just think how expensive it is to use like the Western Union or MoneyGram. And the things that you have to go through to send from here to another country. Let's say we're sending money to Ghana. By the time I send $1,000 to Ghana and it goes through all of these intermediaries that are all extracting their own fee for the privilege of the service that they provide to get my money from point A to point B, it costs well more than $1,000. If I'm sending it to a country that doesn't have the same rules, laws, and norms as this country does, then one, they might have an unstable economy. Maybe by the time it goes from a dollar to whatever the local currency is, it's also lost extraordinary value because there's even exponentially higher inflation in certain other countries, or like try to send something to Venezuela or something like that. That is really time consuming, costs a lot of money, and you don't know if the money is actually going to reach the person in their local economy. Right. Translate that into the ability for me seamlessly, quickly, and on pennies on the dollar, pennies, that I can send $1,000 for the equivalent of maybe $1.36 in the equivalent of Bitcoin from point A to point B. That's going to get there within 15 minutes. It's going to go at pennies on the dollar. And I am guaranteed that money, that value goes from point A to point B in a way that intermediaries aren't extracting value along the way. Remittances is huge. Cross-border payments as well. So if you're doing business out, maybe you have an online or online-based business primarily, and not only are you dealing with people in the United States, but around the world, being able to have a unified method and a value that you both value and you both regard, that is another thing as well. And keep in mind, again, even though we say cryptocurrency, the currency is not just the ability to have a medium of exchange or a unit of account, characteristics that we traditionally think of when we think of money, but also what we call a store of value. The idea that if it's valued in X dollars today, it'll hold value or go up in value over time. A store of value, same way we think about gold or silver, right? And now Bitcoin in particular is considered at this point to be the digital equivalent of gold. We call it digital gold. And the reason is because, like gold having some finite amount, even though we keep finding them. So we'll pause and reflect on that. But let's assume we don't find any more gold. There's no more gold to be mined. That Bitcoin, as I said earlier, we have 21 million that will ever be in circulation. So that hard cap is what we call de-inflationary or disinflationary. And so it's not going to be like the dollar, where Alan Greenspan actually some time ago was famous for saying the country, no matter the saber rattling and what is said on Capitol Hill, we will never, ever, ever ultimately default on debt because we can always print more money. We print more money out of wars and rumors of wars and pandemics and other disasters to stimulate the economy. Great, I guess, to stimulate the economy, so consumers are going to consume. But it is horrible to maintain the value when you're watering down the value by printing money.
Yeah.
Right?
Yes,
so
I agree.
That is the other extraordinary value with specifically a digital asset that has a hard cap like Bitcoin. There are thousands of coins and tokens, and they are not all created equally. And my mom's probably listening, so I won't call them the type of ish coins that most people say, but anything that is not Bitcoin is called an altcoin, which is an alternative to Bitcoin. That doesn't mean they're bad. We have meme coins that started out as a joke and now do have value. So shout out to Doge. I'm not recommending, this is not legal or financial advice, but I'm just making the observation that Bitcoin is different from ETH. ETH is different from XRP, which is also known as Ripple, which is different from a stable coin that maintains its own value. So for all of those reasons, focusing on the impact of remittances, cross-border payments, not just having a currency, but also having a store of value and a capital asset that you'll have capital gains, capital losses over time. But those reasons are reasons that we should pay close attention to and start small. Don't wait until you know everything, because I literally, even as a quote unquote expert, learn something new every day. But the time is past us to just write this off as something that's not worthy of our attention. Because, in fact, Black folks over index in holding cryptocurrency, Bitcoin in particular. When I think about on the continent of Africa, they're well advanced in holding Bitcoin and using it at local economies. We're a little further behind here in the States.
Mm, great point to make. And we want to get ahead. And I love that you said, again, starting small.
Absolutely.
And Dr. Tonya, going back to something that you mentioned earlier is, of course, starting small and not jumping full in, but also deciding where and if this is right for you. I want to talk about, are there specific industries or business types where digital currency integration works particularly well?
Love it. So it makes me think of a couple of a few areas. One, if you are in supply chain, it makes me think of trucking. It makes me think of anywhere where you have multiple parties who need to get a product from point A to point Z, and everybody has to rely on each party in the chain doing their part, but most often they don't know each other, right? And it's the reason that
Mm-hmm.
from a farmer who farms romaine lettuce and then sends it to Whole Foods, there are like 100 hands and companies that touch it in between. And then something goes left and they have to take it off of the shelves because they don't know where it came from. So now all of the romaine lettuce has to go, even though it's one specific place. If there was a time stamped record from point A to point Z, we don't have to take them all off. Either you got it from this particular place at this particular time or you didn't. And so it makes me think of supply chain as being really, really important. Anytime you need a database that requires access and participation by a number of people, makes me think of research, particularly as folks are paying more and more attention to generative AI. I have a lot of concerns. There are benefits, there are a lot of risks and concerns, but in a decentralized nature, being able to validate and verify research information and also share it so that it's not, behind some walled garden. Like we want to get past this idea of walled gardens that we're so used to now, where you have these
Mm-hmm.
ginormous companies, the big seven, who have scraped all of our data and we've willingly given all of our data for free 99. And you and I both know that if you're not paying for something, then you are the product. Like you are the
Yes.
product.
Yeah.
So, how do we get back to data ownership, the verification of facts? So, it makes me think of media. We will, in this particular day and time, need now more than ever sources of information that we can rely on in truth so that we're all operating from the same sense and notion of truth. What you do with that truth is on you, but we shouldn't be squabbling about an actual fact. Like I didn't know that that was going to be a thing. So media and verification, authentication is important. Maybe you're in information technology, or one of the use cases I love the most is identity. So it makes me think if I'm going, as a person who is well above 21, and I'm going to purchase something that requires that I am 21 years old, I
Mm-hmm.
shouldn't have to prove that by also giving up more information than is needed. You don't actually even need to know my name. You certainly don't need to know where I live, my eye color, how tall I am, right? You don't need my
Yeah.
ID. What you need is yes or no, is this person above 21 or below? And so using technologies like non-fungible tokens, which we've become accustomed to hearing that connected with creativity because of the NFT creativity boom and bust, but that underlying technology is great for uniquely identifying a specific person, party, good. And so those are some of the things that immediately come to mind when I think about where this could really work. But honestly, again, as a reminder for your listeners, go on the interweb, search
Mm-hmm.
blockchain, and fill in whatever your area of expertise is, and start to get curious about what leaders are talking about in the space and start getting up to speed on that, and then quickly becoming the smartest person in the room in your particular industry.
Yes. And that those I love that it also gives like those examples of how it would look within those industries. So that's
Mm.
really good.
Hmm.
And so One of the things you talked about earlier, or we've mentioned, is like the changes, and especially within the current the new administration. I want to talk about the future of money and how do you see digital currency evolving over the next 5 to 10 years, and what should entrepreneurs watch for?
So I really do think that this idea of moving past our current understanding of the internet is going to change significantly.
Mm-hmm.
And it make I do this talk that starts with explaining what Web one was, when you just had this one data server and it was pushing out information to all of us, as to our computers, or to our the database center was sending it out in a unidirectional way, meaning we're just the recipients, we're passive, and it's
Mm-hmm.
coming to us, right? And then Web 2 was the exchange, not only back and forth to the server to become, like user generated content, but we could also share with each other. And that was expanding. But still, that information is passing through only three, four, five, six, seven companies tops. And the companies. Um,
Mm-hmm.
Moving in a post web world, interestingly, I've started to hear people talk about what it looks like when we are reclaiming our data. Data is king, data is queen, sovereign, data is
Mm-hmm.
the oil, data is more valuable than oil at this point in time. We will start to hear people talking about the value of innovations that empower people. I suspect that folks are going to continue to suffer as we talk about what's happening with TikTok. The Supreme Court, by the time you listeners are hearing this, we don't know ultimately if that company is going to be purchased, but the Supreme Court has
Right.
made it abundantly clear that it must be sold by January 19th of 2025. What happens after that, time will tell. But it reminds us that when you build your entire entrepreneurial relationship on something owned by someone else, you are ultimately at their mercy. And
Mm-hmm.
it's in the same way that I used to love MySpace and Black whatever and back in the
Yes.
day. And now
Yeah.
technically I don't even know how to get into it, but things can be here today and gone tomorrow. And nobody
Yeah.
thought this would happen to TikTok. And now look where we are. And this is
Yeah.
really harming people's businesses that have been built there. So it's about ownership of your intellectual property, ownership of your data. I love a good, I'm picking up my proverbial ball and rolling, so that I'm not beholden to any one place or space.
Yeah.
And that is what we need to pay attention to. One, setting yourself up for that level of success, and also innovating in ways that would empower our community to do the same.
Hmm. Dr. Tonya, this has been one powerful conversation, I must tell you, and just learning so much in the speaking power and life into us and knowing that our future is in our hands as well. I do want to talk about some of the work that you are doing and some of the continued support. So you mentioned your book, Digital Money Demystified. Can you tell us a little bit more about the book and what do you hope that people can take away from the book?
Yeah, this has been a really wonderful labor of love where
Mm-hmm.
I sat down to share my personal experience for sure, because I wanted to be very relatable to people who say, well, that might be great for you, but it's certainly not going to be
Mm-hmm.
great for me. And, you have all those highfalutin degrees. I'm sure it works for you, but not for me. And I wanted to be very clear that my connection to the space was out of a desire to create transformative and educational content, to demystify the space, to provide plain language definitions, to ensure that folks can see how fact versus fiction is going to be the difference between whether you have FOMO and actually rush in too quickly, or have what I call fogey, fear of getting in, and never try. That
Mm-hmm.
somewhere
Okay.
right. So it's like my new thing, but you all can use it. And this
Mm-hmm.
idea is somewhere between the carnival barkers, who I hate, but also the naysayers who are doing an equally like disastrous effort. The net impact is that it's either scaring people away, or We have the Sam Bankman-Frieds of the world who scam people under the guise of crypto when that scam was really just like Lehman Brothers or Bernie Madoff. The scam had nothing to
Mm-hmm.
do with cryptocurrency. It was a scammer and using a centralized crypto exchange to encourage people to keep their crypto on the exchange and then without their knowledge and consent, shipping it to his sister hedge fund company and stealing people's money. Like that's
Mm-mm.
garden variety tomfoolery. So I wanted
Lord.
to ensure that I could equip both beginners, but also seasoned professionals. Sometimes you think you know everything, but that dangerous quadrant where you don't know that you don't know, and that can also leave you vulnerable to scams and missed opportunities as well. So my mission really has always been to ensure that as the digital economy evolves, that
Mm-hmm.
it remains inclusive, that the information to success, like the secret sauce, is not walled off in Silicon Valley and Wall Street, and that for people of all backgrounds, especially the Black community, are able to participate safely, legally, and confidently. And so that was the reason that I sat down to do Digital Money Demystified. That is the reason that I created my flagship course called From Cash to Crypto: How to Go from Cash to
Mm-hmm.
Crypto Safely, Legally, and Confidently. And that's the reason I now work with, through my consultancy, in particular, small and medium firms, but happy to do them at any level. Financial professionals need to get up to speed. Lawyers darn sure need to get up to speed. Those CPAs of the
Mm-hmm.
world, and entrepreneurs who are really trying to make sense of this and stay ahead of the curve, because again, most people, even though Bitcoin was first launched, it's the OG in the space in January of 2009. And in fact, we just recently celebrated Bitcoin's birthday. But it's still, oddly, it's still early. It's not too
Yeah.
late. People, see these eye-popping numbers of the value of Bitcoin now. And I think we'll continue to see, because it's above six figures now, a concerted, what we call bull run, where the price is just going up and up and up. There'll be a pullback because every asset has a life cycle. You do not have to buy all or nothing as you will with a stock. So you can literally go on to Cash App or Venmo or PayPal
Mm-hmm.
or Robinhood or Coinbase and literally buy $5, $10 or $100 or $1,000 or $5,000, however you get down. But you should absolutely, at least in the beginning, you already have a relationship with those platforms. The
Yeah.
ultimate thing for you is to have your own wallet and to use those other places and spaces just to buy or maybe to trade, but that you are your own bank. You are in control because you have your own designated wallet, which is the critically important technology that you need in order to sign and send and receive transactions. If you don't have your own wallet, you're relying on the FTXs of the world and the Coinbases of the world. Not comparing Coinbase to FTX, so don't at me. But you're relying on a centralized intermediary that's who's going to be there and allow you to access your own money. That's like not the point. But if, as a starting point, to be, feel safe and to purchase, I'm a professor. That's your homework as we wrap up. That's your homework. To, if
Yes.
you've never bought before, go to your favorite app that already offers you access to these assets and make a purchase. And then come see about me and I'll tell you what to do next.
Yes, I love it. Homework. And you're right. These are the things that we're using. I always see them on there. So diving into those more. Speaking of, come see about you. Where can listeners go to learn more and connect with you, support all the things?
Excellent. Well, you can definitely find me at proftonyaevans.com. That's prof like professor, TONYAEVANS.com. You can see all of the articles that I publish. I'm a contributor at Forbes magazine for Forbes Crypto. So you can see
Yay.
those. You can access my podcast. I have two. Actually, I just, after 4 years, ended Tech Intersect, but there are 240
Mhm.
episodes always there for you to help you get up to speed and hear what's going on in the industry and to get and to learn. And my latest venture is with SiriusXM podcasts, thanks to the amazing work of Karen Hunter, who is a very popular host on SiriusXM Urban View Radio, Channel 126. But the pod, you can get it wherever you listen to your podcast, like right here. And I have a weekly segment on a show called Financially Speaking. I'm on Mondays. And I'm building the foundation there. So you can go on a journey with me to start small, but to begin, or if you're more savvy, there'll be something there for you too. My segment is called Confidently Crypto. And again, that podcast is called Financially Speaking.
One, congratulations on all the things. This is so good. And I'm so glad that you are out here spreading the knowledge in different platforms and in different ways. So congratulations. And we'll be sure to put those in the show notes as well.
Thank you.
You're welcome. And Dr. Tonya, this has been a phenomenal conversation. My final question is, what does it mean to you to be Black in business?
I'm so proud to come from a tradition of entrepreneurs. Even when it makes me think of my parents, they started out in firms or hospitals, father a surgeon, my mother a patent attorney, but ultimately they ended up with their own firm or their own business. And it makes me think of my grandparents who were entrepreneurial as well. And it makes me think of empowering my community. It makes me think of circulating dollars that matter, and not even more valuable, the information that will sustain us all. So we're not starting over in each generation, because as you know, in each generation, nobody starts over from scratch, and we're even further behind. And when we think about how fast technology is moving at this point, it's just like it will be incalculable the amount that we will lose if we don't stay ahead. We built this joint for free, and now we should not just survive but thrive. And so when I think about being Black in business, I think of being the best and making these power moves.
So powerful. We built this joint for free, and we deserve to reap the benefits.
Yes.
I love that. And Dr. Tonya, I love the work that you are doing. And also thank you so much for providing so much value, so many resources. I have a ton of them listed. Just thank you so much for your time, and thank you for the work that you do.
Thank you. I appreciate you.
Didn't I tell you that this was going to be a masterclass episode? Such an incredible conversation. And I have to admit, before this conversation with Dr. Tonya, I did not know much about digital currency or blockchain or crypto, any of this. And this was a whole new world for me. But I learned so much today. And I am so grateful that we had Dr. Tonya here to break it all down in such a way that's easy to understand, and also in an actionable way. From understanding how digital currency works to discovering how it can truly empower us as Black community and Black entrepreneurs in general, this was a masterclass that really opened my eyes to the fact that there are so many possibilities. And I hope that it did the same for you. This episode wasn't just about learning. It was about equipping you with the tools and confidence to take the next step in your business and life journey. And it's conversations like these that remind me how incredible it is to have this space to learn and to grow together. The Black to Business family is truly something that's so special, and I brag about it all the time, because together we're not just building businesses, we're creating legacies, and we are creating real change for our communities. So I want to thank you for tuning in and for being a part of this family, and let's keep pushing the culture forward and supporting each other every step of the way. And if you want to revisit today's gems, and trust me, you will, head over to blacktobusiness.com/236 to find the resources mentioned and learn more about Dr. Tonya and her incredible work. And I cannot wait to see you back here next week, same time, same place. But until then, keep building boldly and keep pushing the culture forward. Later.